We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. Donald Trump defeats Nikki Haley in high-stakes New Hampshire. Haley vows to fight on.
This race is far from over.
And just a little note to Nikki. She's not going to win.
NATO chief welcomes Turkish approval of Sweden's NATO membership bid after 20-month delay. Hungary's approval still needed to enlarge Western bloc. UK to continue to degrade Houthis' capability as 24 nations conduct strikes in Yemen. UN chief says de-escalation in Yemen is essential and attacks on ships must end immediately. And in sports, Indian women's team to face Poland in the inaugural edition of the FIH Hockey 5S Women's World Cup in Muscat on Wednesday. Moving on to details now, Donald Trump cruised to victory in New Hampshire as Republican presidential candidate on Tuesday, defeating his only remaining rival, Nikki Haley. First Iowa, and now with his win, Trump has marched closer to the November rematch. Trump won 54% votes, while Nikki Haley grabbed 44%. However, Haley is not yet ready to concede. Delivering remarks from Concord soon after voting, she said the race is far from over. She had finished third in Iowa primary.
New Hampshire is first in the nation. It is not the last in the nation. This race is far from over. There are dozens of states left to go. And now we're the last one standing next to Donald Trump. And today we got close to half of the vote. We still have a ways to go, but we keep moving up.
While at his own party in Nashua, Trump opened his speech by mocking Haley, saying she made the speech like she won.
You know, we won New Hampshire 3 times now. Three. We win it every time. We win the primary, we win the generals, we've won it. And just a little note to Nikki. She's not going to win.
Economy, immigration, fentanyl crisis are some of the top concerns of voters in the elections this year. And President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris held an abortion rights rally in Virginia on Tuesday, but Biden was repeatedly interrupted by protesters opposed to his support for Israel in its war with Hamas in Gaza. Demonstrators shouting, "Genocide Joe has got to go," interrupted the Democrat at least 10 times during the rally in Manassas, Virginia, his first campaign event of 2024. Joe Biden, in addition to focusing on abortion, has cast Trump as a would-be dictator and a threat to democracy. Moving on, Turkey's parliament approved Sweden's NATO membership bid on Tuesday following more than 4 hours of debate. Lawmakers voted 287 in favor and 55 against, clearing a last major hurdle to expanding the Western military alliance after 20 months of delays. Erdogan will sign the bill into law likely in coming days. Hungary remains the only NATO member yet to ratify Stockholm's accession. President Tayyip Erdogan's ruling AK party, its nationalist MHP allies and the main opposition CHP voted in favor of the bid in the General Assembly, while opposition nationalist, Islamist and leftist parties voted against it. Well, the U.S. military carried out more strikes in Yemen early on Wednesday, destroying 2 Houthi anti-ship missiles that were aimed at the Red Sea and were preparing to launch. The recent strikes followed a larger round of strikes carried out by 24 countries on Monday against 8 targets. The strikes, carried out with support of 24 countries, including Australia, Germany, Bahrain, Canada and the Netherlands, were designed to disrupt and degrade the capability of the Houthis to continue their attacks. Also, UK PM Rishi Sunak said that initial evidence from Monday's strikes showed all intended targets were destroyed. The Pentagon also said that over 25 Houthi missile launch facilities and more than 20 missiles in Yemen have been destroyed so far. Meanwhile, the UK is planning fresh sanctions against the Houthis post-strikes. The UK PM Rishi Sunak has also tried to de-link what's been happening in the Red Sea with Israel-Hamas conflict. The Houthis survey don't see it that way. Where are these hostilities going? DD India correspondent Sarah Coates tells us more from Tel Aviv.
Use the most effective means at our disposal to cut off the Houthis' financial resources where they are used to fund these attacks. We are working closely with the United States on this and plan to announce new sanction measures in the coming days.
Of course, there is a lot of fear that this could cause a wider spillover, a wider escalation in the Middle East. We've heard from Britain's Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron. He has addressed this latest round of strikes, saying that he is confident they've been effective on the Houthis, adding that their narrative on these strikes being related to this war inside the Gaza Strip should not be accepted. Now, we did hear also from the United States pretty stern words late last week. They said that it has other options if these attacks do continue on this major shipping lane there in the Red Sea, but failed to elaborate any further as to what these other options could be.
Well, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has urged countries to avoid an escalation in the situation in the Red Sea, where Houthis in Yemen have been attacking commercial vessels amid the ongoing conflict in Gaza. In a statement, the Secretary-General said, and I quote, "The situation in the Red Sea is also deeply worrying. Houthi attacks are disrupting global trade. These have been followed by airstrikes by the United States and the United Kingdom on Houthi positions in Yemen. De-escalation is essential, and all attacks on merchant and commercial vessels in the Red Sea must cease immediately." Well, the risks of broader regional escalation are now becoming a reality. Turning to the north, Israeli government spokesperson Elon Levy said that Israel will not agree to a ceasefire deal with Hamas. He added that efforts were ongoing to bring about the release of the hostages, but declined to elaborate, saying lives were hanging in the balance.
The goals of this war, as laid out by the War Cabinet after the October 7th massacre and handed down to the IDF, remain unchanged. The destruction of Hamas's governing and military capabilities in the Gaza Strip and the return of all the hostages. There will be no ceasefire that leaves the hostages in Gaza and Hamas in power. Beyond that, we have nothing to elaborate.
Also, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Tuesday that Israel would push on with fighting in Gaza until absolute victory, despite suffering one of its toughest days of the military offensive. He said the military was investigating the tragedy in which 21 soldiers were killed when buildings exploded in central Gaza, bringing the single-day Israeli death toll to 24. Well, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres appealed for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. On Tuesday, UN chief said that the humanitarian situation in the Palestinian enclave was appalling and that the people of Gaza not only risk being killed by injured by relentless bombardments, they also run a growing chance of contracting infectious diseases like hepatitis A, dysentery or cholera. Also, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres welcomed the foreign ministers attending the meeting of the United Nations Security Council at UN headquarters in New York. The UNSC met on January 23rd to discuss the situation in the Middle East, particularly the Israel-Hamas conflict. Well, moving on, U.S. Middle East envoy Brett McGurk to travel in the region for active discussions on ensuring the release of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza and securing a humanitarian pause. White House spokesperson John Kirby said the U.S. would support a longer humanitarian pause in combat in Gaza to ensure hostages could be released and aid brought in. Well, British Foreign Secretary David Cameron will travel to Israel on Wednesday, where he's expected to raise concerns over Israel and Gaza conflict. Cameron's trip, which will include visits to the West Bank and to Qatar and Turkey, is his third to the Middle East in just over 2 months. And now shifting focus to Russia-Ukraine war, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russian missiles hit Ukraine's two largest cities, killing 18 people and injuring more than 130. A wave of Russian missiles hit Ukraine's two largest cities on Tuesday. There were strikes on Kyiv and in central Ukraine and the southern region of Kherson, subject to constant shelling. More than 200 sites were hit, including 139 dwellings, with many deaths in an ordinary high-rise apartment building. Ordinary people live there, he said. Kharkiv Regional Governor Ole Snehobov said more than 100 high-rise blocks had been damaged in the first two attacks. There were 3 hits in the evening on an apartment block and other infrastructure.
Regarding the Russian attack in the morning, almost 40 missiles of different types, another combined strike to try and bypass our air defense system. A significant portion of missiles were shot down. Unfortunately, there are hits. More than 200 different objects were damaged. 139 houses only, ordinary houses. 130 people were injured or traumatized. All of them are provided with the necessary assistance. Unfortunately, 18 people lost their lives. My condolences to the family and friends. And this number of dead may still increase. In particular, a rescue operation is still ongoing in Kharkiv. The rubble of the building is being searched. An ordinary high-rise building, ordinary people live there.
While U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reassured Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal on Tuesday that the Biden administration was committed to securing $11.8 billion in budget support to Kyiv as part of a supplemental U.S. funding request. In the statement, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said providing financial support to Ukraine will help Ukraine win the war and advance U.S. national security interest globally. Yellen added that it also demonstrates the resolve of the U.S. and its allies to defend the territorial sovereignty and freedom of democratic countries. And Luxembourg's Foreign Minister Xavier Bettel said it will be hard to get Hungary to back more financial aid to Ukraine at a European Union summit next week on Tuesday. He added Ukraine needed both military and financial assistance.
When you blackmail, in fact, the other 26, it's difficult. I know Viktor Orban well. I know him by knowing that it won't be easy to convince him. We had a difficult agreement last time, I'm right. And what is not good is that from the outside, it was considered for some people like a deal.
Also, Germany's Finance Minister Christian Lindner said the country can't keep up Ukraine's defense capabilities on its own in the long term and that others will need to increase bilateral contributions on Tuesday. He added Germany's efforts to assist Ukraine cannot be attributed to others doing less, calling instead for a fair burden sharing of cost at the EU level. The minister viewed Ukraine as ready for EU membership and in line with EU values, but added that there were still reforms that needed to be made for private sector investment to take off. Also, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced the creation of a council to support entrepreneurship on Tuesday, aimed at bringing business leaders on side in wartime after many expressed outrage at the arrest of a prominent banker. Zelensky issued a decree to enact the formation of a council a day after the Met business community leaders in talks he acknowledged had been difficult. Zelensky said the Council for the Support of Entrepreneurship sought to provide economic security and economic stability right now during martial law. Business owners have expressed concern over the detention last week of banker Ihor Mazepa on allegations he engaged in an illegal acquisition of land north of Kyiv to proceed with construction of luxury housing. Well, atomic scientists on Tuesday kept their doomsday clock set precariously closer to midnight, citing Russia's actions on nuclear weapons amid its invasion of Ukraine, nuclear-armed Israel's Gaza war, and worsening climate change as factors driving the risk of global catastrophe. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist, founded in 1945 by scientists including Albert Einstein and J. Robert Oppenheimer, had set the clock last year at 90 seconds to midnight, the theoretical point of annihilation.
We express amplified concern by moving the clock to 90 seconds to midnight. the closest to global catastrophe it has ever been. The risks of last year continue with unabated ferocity and continue to shape this year. Today, we once again set the doomsday clock to express a continuing and unprecedented level of risk. It is 90 seconds to midnight. 90 seconds to midnight is profoundly unstable and must not engender complacency. And two, the advancement of technology is quickening and outpacing our ability to govern them.
Well, in the bulletin, the scientists said on Tuesdays that the ominous trends continue to point towards catastrophe amidst the fact that China, Russia and the United States all are spending large amounts of money to expand and upgrade their nuclear arsenals, boosting the risk of nuclear war through mistake or miscalculation. Climate change was added as a factor in setting the clock in 2007.
Bad news for sure, but there's also some good news. I think as already mentioned, 2023 was the hottest year on record, and a range of extreme events across the world made more likely by climate change. Global greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise. Global and North Atlantic sea surface temperatures broke records. Antarctic ice was at lowest levels, and I could go on, but I think one gets the picture.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. U.S. Coast Guard rescues fishermen in ice blast. Tennessee records 27 deaths from Arctic blast. Benito giraffe travels 50 hours to be relocated from northern Mexico to the African Safari Wildlife Park in Puebla in central Mexico. A body cam video captured the dramatic rescue of a child trapped in frozen pond in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Kuran, and moving on, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Tuesday pledged $45 million in additional financing to help fight conflict and bring stability to coastal West Africa. Blinken is on the second stop of a four-nation tour of Africa, taking him to Cape Verde, Ivory Coast, Nigeria and Angola from January 21st to 26th. Blinken, who is visiting Nigeria as part of an African tour to strengthen bilateral relations, said the U.S. will continue to support Nigeria and other regional partners. Blinken also discussed challenges to democracy and security in the region during his meeting with Nigerian President Bola Tinubu in a visit that comes after last year's coup in neighboring Niger.
Security, which we also discussed at some length. The United States is determined to be and remain a strong security partner for Nigeria. I want to extend the condolences of the American people to all Nigerians who were affected by the horrific attacks over the Christmas weekend. We mourn their loss and all killed in recent attacks, including, by the way, staff from our United States mission, locally employed staff and 4 police officers who were killed in Anambra last May. As I told the President and the Foreign Minister, the United States will support Nigeria as it works to bring about a more secure, a more peaceful and a more prosperous future for its people.
Well, in the latest sign of heightened tensions on the Korean peninsula, North Korea fired multiple cruise missiles towards the sea off its west coast on Wednesday. South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff said the missiles were fired at around 2200 GMT on Tuesday, and the launches were being analyzed by South Korean and U.S. intelligence. The JCS added that further activities by the North were being monitored. The latest firing of missiles by Pyongyang comes as the South Korean Navy's Special Warfare Unit was taking part in training along the east coast in Gangwon province bordering the north for 10 days. Also, over 100 Guatemalan migrants deported by the U.S. arrived at Guatemala City on Tuesday. The deported migrants, including 17 families and single adults, arrived at Aurora Airport in Guatemala City on a flight chartered by the U.S. government. This latest group of deportees is part of increased deportations involving migrants from Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Colombia and Venezuela. Many migrants in the United States flee their home countries due to economic hardship, violence and political instability. Well, Venezuelan opposition candidate Maria Corina Machado announced an alliance with political parties and civil society organizations that will help organize her campaign to challenge President Nicolas Maduro. Machado also called on authorities to reveal the exact date of the presidential elections. An agreement between the opposition and Maduro's government, signed in Barbados in 2023, said elections would take place in the second half of the year. The campaign has not formally begun, and Maduro has yet to officially announce a bid for re-election. Machado is currently barred from holding public office, calling the ban unfair. Machado has appealed the decision, but the Supreme Court has yet to decide. Well, hundreds of supporters of Venezuela's ruling Socialist Party took to the streets of Caracas in a rally to mark the end of a military dictatorship in the South American nation. Venezuelans typically take to the streets on January 23rd to mark the end of rule by military dictator Marcos Pérez Jiménez 66 years ago. The march was largely attended by supporters of President Nicolas Maduro, taking place near a gathering of opposition supporters. Moving on, in France, protesting farmers blocked roads across France on Tuesday that also led to a fatal accident as the unions urged the government to ease the consumer prices and reduce environmental regulations. The unrest is the first major challenge for new Prime Minister Gabriel Attal as the protests enter into the second week after spilling over from neighbouring countries. The government prides itself on its fight against inflation, pressuring the food sector to lower supermarket prices. The European Commission published a report on Tuesday saying 63 measures worth €2.5 billion had been taken between 2014 and 2023 to support European Union farmers and producers. And moving on, ahead of the 2024 general elections, Pakistan People's Party chairman Bilawal Bhutto Zardari said he will not seek a political retribution from opponents if elected Prime Minister. Addressing a public gathering in Chiniot as part of PPP's campaign for the 2024 general elections, the former foreign minister called for new ideas and leadership to calm political and economic instability. Bhutto Zardari plans to tap into widespread anger, saying he has a concrete plan to provide free electricity and boost social safety programs despite fiscal constraints.
We are facing a perfect storm of crises. The economic crisis that we're facing is one of the worst in our history. The security challenges that we're facing risk pushing Pakistan back to a far more difficult time when we used to have terrorist attacks every other day across the country. As far as the geopolitical challenges in this part of the world is concerned, that poses a whole other set of challenges. And within that context, I don't think we have time to waste on politics as usual.
And news just coming in, a small commuter plane carrying workers to a mine in Canada's far north crashed on Tuesday shortly after taking off. There were no details on how many people died or how many had been on board, but the Premier of the Northwest Territories put out a statement mourning those lost in the crash. 3 Royal Canadian Air Force squadrons supported search and rescue efforts for the aircraft, which was found near the Slave River after it lost contact shortly after takeoff. A team of investigators has been deployed to look into the accident involving a BAE Jetstream aircraft. The crash comes a day after 3 people were killed and 4 others seriously injured in a helicopter crash in neighbouring British Columbia. And almost 13 years after its core melted down and triggered a hydrogen blast in one of its worst nuclear disasters in history, Japanese nuclear power plant operator Tokyo Electric Power Company wrapped up testing of the first drones to be deployed to the wrecked Fukushima Daiichi plant in its decades-long decommissioning process. This would be the first time a drone would enter the vessel to provide a fuller picture of the damage above water. The nuclear reactor in Unit 1 was the first to start melting down after a massive tsunami struck the east coast of Japan in March 2011. Well, movie nominations for the Oscars are out, with the biographical atomic bomb thriller Oppenheimer sweeping categories, securing 13 nominations. The films Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon and Barbie have also done well. Caroline Malone gives us a rundown of the top picks.
Well, there was the cultural phenomenon of Barbenheimer last year, created with the release of the blockbuster movies Barbie and Oppenheimer on the same day. But it's the latter, the biographical thriller about the father of the atomic bomb, that has swept Oscar nominations that include Best Movie and Best Director for Christopher Nolan. In the Best Actor category, Cillian Murphy plays the lead. He's also nominated. That category also includes 2 black actors, Coleman Domingo for Rustin and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction, among other actors. Well, Barbie also got a Best Movie nomination, but the lead actress Margot Robbie actually missed out on a Best Actress nomination. Instead, there was recognition for Emma Stone from Poor Things, and from Killers of the Flower Moon, a Western film that's directed by Martin Scorsese, Lily Gladstone actually becomes the first actor of Native American ancestry to be nominated, as well as Annette Bening. She's been nominated many times, but not won before. She's been recognized for Nyad, the epic story of a long-distance swimmer. Well, the Best Movie is normally won at the Oscars by a classic drama, but this category was actually expanded in 2021 and now includes 10 titles. This year, we also have Anatomy of a Fall, which is a French legal drama thriller, and Past Lives, a touching story of school friends who lose touch when one of them moves from South Korea to the US. There's also Maestro, about conductor Leonard Bernstein, who got a number of nominations. It's one of those films that was distributed on Netflix and shows an increasing presence on streaming platforms for people to see movies rather than in the theatres. Well, the actual Oscars ceremony takes place on March the 10th, with late-night comedian Jimmy Kimmel hosting. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. The U.S. Coast Guard has rescued fishermen trapped on an ice floe near Catawba Island in Lake Erie, Ohio, after dozens of people have died due to freezing temperatures. In Atlanta, an unhoused man set himself on fire and died under a bridge. Tennessee has recorded 27 deaths related to the Arctic blast since last week, and public schools in Nashville have cancelled classes for 6 consecutive days. The death toll from a landslide in China's southwestern province of Yunnan province has now risen to 31. Over 1,000 rescue workers have been mobilized as they continue to battle extreme cold conditions to rescue the several dozen buried people. A body cam video captured the rescue of a child trapped in a frozen pond in Jonesboro, Arkansas. The video shows a police officer pulling the child out of the water, and the child was taken to the hospital for checkups on any cold weather injuries. Benito, the giraffe who spent 50 hours traveling from northern to central Mexico, has arrived at the African Safari Wildlife Park in Puebla, Mexico. The giraffe, who spent his lonely life in a park in Ciudad Juarez, has been relocated after a campaign. African Safari's director, Frank Camacho, said Benito arrived in good health but will need to adapt to new weather conditions, diet and herd before visitors can see him. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Former Chief Minister of Bihar, Karpuri Thakur, to be awarded Bharat Ratna posthumously for his unwavering commitment to uplift the downtrodden and his visionary leadership. We'll show you glimpses of patriotic musical concert organized in North India's Jammu and Kashmir Academy of Art, Culture and Languages.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights and authentic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Donald Trump defeats Haley in high-stakes New Hampshire polls project. Trump moves closer to White House nomination. NATO chief welcomes Turkish approval of Sweden's NATO membership bid after 20-month delay. Hungary's approval still needed to enlarge Western Bloc. UK to continue to degrade Houthis' capability as 24 nations conduct strikes in Yemen. UN chief says de-escalation in Yemen is essential and attacks on ships must end immediately. And in sports, Indian women's team to face Poland in the inaugural edition of the FIH Hockey 5S Women's World Cup in Muscat on Wednesday. Well, it's been 25 years of India and France's strategic partnership spanning across sectors including defense, energy, civil aviation and space. As the French president arrives in India for Republic Day, DD India correspondent Jessica Taneja decodes the Indo-Franco relations.
Invisible reach and instant kill. These Rafale jets with their 150-kilometer strike range can neutralize threats before they even blink. The French-supplied fighter jets enhance India's capability for a two-front war. For decades, France has been India's strategic partner beyond headlines and stealth defense. In May 1998, France defied pressure from its Western partners to fuel India's nuclear dreams, avoided Western sanctions, and even supplied uranium for India's first nuclear power plant. It even refrained from commenting on India's internal affairs.
I thank President Chirac for displaying better understanding of India's position on the question of nuclear test. His stand that economic sanctions will not help has proved to be true.
J'ai été heureux de constater que l'Inde était ouverte à toute solution conforme à ses intérêts, naturellement, et à son rang, et qui permettrait de permettre la non-prolifération dans le monde.
Whether it's former President Jacques Chirac or François Hollande, the enduring strategic partnership between France and India continues to gain momentum based on shared values and aspirations. From building Gaganyaaan's astronaut haven and tracking oil spills to launching satellites,
3, 2,
Un, top. France has been actively supporting India's space ambitions since 43 years. Beyond defense and space cooperation, the Indo-Pacific region takes center stage. French overseas territories generating 93% of its exclusive economic zone provide a strategic vantage point. France and India leverage this unique geopolitical position to assert their positions on global issues such as multilateralism, protection of the global commons, and freedom of navigation. Notably, France was the first country outside India's immediate neighborhood to conduct coordinated naval patrols in the Indian Ocean. Even though both nations commit to working together to ensure that there is no imbalance in the Indo-Pacific and navigate multipolarity together, the driving force of the Indo-Franco relations is in the sovereign realm of strategy and security, where the state's role is greater than the economy. Jessica Taneja for DD India.
Well, moving on, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar concluded his Nigeria visit with an address to the Nigeria-India Business Council. The minister said that investment and trade are at the heart of partnership between the two countries. The minister further pushed for taking ties to a higher level. The event was attended by Nigeria's Ministers of Trade, Budget and Economic Planning, Blue Economy and Steel Development and the Governor of Nasarawa.
Africa is rising. And India is betting on Africa's rise. We are betting on Africa's rise because by any objective assessment, today there is so much going for Africa in terms of demography, in terms of resources, in terms of ambition, in terms of increasingly of policy alignments that clearly portend a very different, a much more positive future in the very short term. For us, the reordering of the world, the rebalancing, the multipolarity of the world will not be complete until Africa takes its due place.
Well, every year on January 24th, India observes National Girl Child Day, a day dedicated to the girl children. The day was initiated by the country's Ministry of Women and Child Development in 2008. Since then, every year, the day has been celebrated across India. The Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao scheme was launched on 22nd of January 2015 by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It aims to address the issue of the declining child sex ratio. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauded the indomitable spirit and accomplishments of the girl child. In a tweet, PM wrote, and I quote, "On National Girl Child Day, we salute the indomitable spirit and accomplishment of the girl child. We also recognize the rich potential of every girl child in all sectors. They are change makers who make our nation and society better." Over the last decade, our government has been making many efforts to build a nation where every girl child has the opportunity to learn, grow and thrive, unquote. Also, 24th January is celebrated as International Day of Education. Education is UNESCO's top priority because it is a basic human right and the foundation for peace and sustainable development. DD India correspondent Kriti Vadhera reports for more.
Education is a human right, a powerful driver of development and one of the strongest instruments for reducing poverty, gender equality, peace and stability. The new Education Policy 2020 aims at more dynamic and responsive education system.
The new National Education Policy 2020 and now the NCFSE 23 that has come in is one of the most promising visions that have ever come into the education. Gone are the days when you would tell the children that this is the syllabus, study this, these are the questions which will be asked, and this is how you have to answer. Today, the canvas of the child has expanded. He can creatively think and answer what he wants to. And the children are brighter than us. The child has become very important. The teacher has taken a back seat because these children are born with the technology. They are the natives of technology. We are the migrants. but they are the natives of technology and they know how to leverage and how to use the technology.
India is appearing as a global leader in ICT. Educational technology plays an important role in the improvement of educational processes and outcomes. Young minds are growing confidence while using digital gadgets in classrooms.
I like to come to digital literacy class. I love to play with iPads, and digital literacy class is good.
Educators find it convenient to integrate digital devices into the teaching and learning process.
The integration of technology helps us to create an aha moment in our class. It's a kind of joyful learning. The students learn a lot because once they do the thing, it is learning by doing when we come to the technology. And as people are born in the technology era, they are born with iPads.
It is more interactive for the kids. Like with the display, with the digital display, they are very much engaged with the subject and the content.
NEP 2020 is a comprehensive framework and outlining of India's vision and approach to education reform. Comprehensive approach of New Education Policy 2020 has revamped the education system in India, emphasizing flexibility, creativity, and giving it a holistic approach towards learning. With camera person Rajesh Kumar, I am Kruti Vadhera, reporting from New Delhi for DD India.
And moving on, Karpuri Thakur, the former Chief Minister of India's Bihar state, will be posthumously awarded Bharat Ratna, the highest civilian award of India. He served as the Chief Minister of Bihar from 1970 to 71 and later in 1977 to 1979. Thakur passed away in February 17, 1988. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in a post on X, mentioned about Thakur's unwavering commitment to uplift the downtrodden and his visionary leadership that have left an indelible mark on India's socio-political fabric. Well, 2 days after the Pran Pratishtha ceremony of Lord Ram in the Indian holy city of Ayodhya, devotees gather in huge numbers at Ram Path to offer prayers to Sri Ram Lalla. Around 1,000 Rapid Action Force Jawans have been deployed inside and outside of the temple to make sure the devotees do not face any difficulty. And the Indian government's outreach program, Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, is seeing popular engagement amongst the people across India. The Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra has now reached India's Rajasthan. People participated enthusiastically in the camp organized at Hanumangarh district of Rajasthan. Common people who have benefited from the welfare schemes expressed their gratitude to the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. Also, Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra is being conducted in various parts of Mizoram. The events were held in Buarpui, Lugile district and Songra Rasuri and Bora Pansuri in Langvatial district. Additionally, Dampui, Mimbang and Ringmonaha hosted VBSY activities today. Various departments explained the central government's initiatives and benefits for the people in agriculture, financial inclusion and health sector. Schemes in agriculture department included Pradhan Mantri Kisan Mandhan Yojana and Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana. While health and family welfare covered Ayushman Bharat benefits, PM Jan Arogya Yojana, PM Bharatiya Janaushadhi Pariyojana among others. And the 7th edition of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Pariksha Pe Charcha 2024 will be held on the 29th of this month. Record number of over 22.6 million students have registered to participate in this edition. Pariksha Pe Charcha is part of the larger movement Exam Warriors led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to create a stress-free atmosphere for the youngsters. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. An ocean cleaning awareness campaign was held on Wednesday in India's Chennai on the theme Swim for the Ocean, Safe for the Ocean. 3 children, Taragai, Nishvik and Kavi Ashtvathan, swam from Chennai and Nilakarai to Marina Beach. The campaign aims to raise awareness about keeping the beaches clean and reducing plastic pollution. North India's Jammu and Kashmir Academy of Art, Culture and Languages organised a patriotic musical concert at Tagore Hall in Srinagar on Tuesday. Many renowned artists performed in the concert. A special divine book hamper has been introduced by India's Chennai book publisher on the occasion of the Ram Temple Pran Pratishtha to learn about Lord Ram. The book hamper has a specially crafted kit containing 20 essential items and books in illustrated form as a wallpaper along with a tic-tac-toe game. Vandiyur Mariamman Tepakulam temple is lit up with colourful lights ahead of the annual float festival in the temple town of India, Madurai. The float festival is celebrated annually during the month of January and February by the people of the region with great enthusiasm. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Longest train strike in German history begins on Wednesday. Analysts say 6-day strike will seriously burden economy. An Indian tennis veteran Rohan Bopanna and his Australian partner stormed into the semi-finals of the men's doubles at the Australian Open. Also, you can listen in to inspirational journeys of Indian athletes as Sports Ministry launches Fit India Champions podcast series.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India. Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. On to some business news now. India is on a path to become the world's largest producer of lentils in the crop year 2023-24. The projected output this year is around 1.6 million tons. If the projection comes true, the country's lentil output would be highest since the 2017-2018 crop year, which was 1.62 million tons. The government is aiming to make India self-sufficient in pulses by December 2027. India is a big importer of the crop. The agricultural crop year in India is from July to June. Also, the Indian toy industry witnessed remarkable growth in the financial year 2022-23 in comparison to financial year 2014-2015, with a decline in imports by 52% and rise in exports by 239%. The report, Success Story of Made in India Toys by the Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow and India's Commerce Ministry, highlighted that in a span of 6 years, the number of manufacturing units have doubled, reducing imports from 33% to 12%, with an overall rise in labour productivity. The report also stated that the government efforts have enabled the creation of a more conducive manufacturing ecosystem for the Indian toy industry. It emphasised that India is emerging as a top exporting nation due to the country's integration into the global toy value chain. And Asian markets opened on a cautious note and traded lower on Wednesday in the wake of the mixed trends on the Wall Street overnight and as investors gauged key economic data from Japan. Japan's Nikkei 225 fell 0.26%, while the Tropics declined 0.15%. South Korea's Kospi dropped 0.43% and Kosdaq dipped 1.35%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index futures, however, indicated a stronger open. All eyes on Indian indices, which slipped slipped significantly yesterday, though it opened on a positive note. Both Nifty and Sensex were choppy during early trade on Wednesday, alternating between red and green. The Nifty 50 and the BSE Sensex both slipped over 1% each to end at 21,238.80 points and 70,370.55 at Tuesday's closing bells. Well, German train drivers began the longest strike in the nation's modern history that will last until Monday, affecting both freight and passenger transport services in the country. The strike is the latest in a series of walkouts over working hours, conditions and pay. Industry experts have estimated that the strike will cost Europe's biggest economy up to $110 million per day and warned of the reputational damage to German business. The GDL trade union, which includes trade drivers and other rail workers, has said it was forced into the strike after bosses at the national rail operator tried to trick the workers over their demands for improved pay and conditions. Also, the Bank of Japan has decided not to take any action at its first policy meeting of the year, as was widely expected. But the market is now paying attention to a more positive tone on the wage and inflation outlook, as well as an upgrade to the financial year 2024 inflation outlook, which lays the groundwork for policy normalization. We still see a slightly higher chance of a first hike taking place in June than in April. Meanwhile, speculation persists about if and when the Bank of Japan will adjust its monetary policy the next time. And inflation-weary Cubans are gearing up for a new wave of inflation after the government last week rolled out details of an austerity plan that economists say will touch nearly every facet of Cuba's already struggling economy. Prime Minister Manuel Marrero claims that the actions, which include raising taxes as well as cutting subsidies, will stem a spiraling budget deficit that is expected to surpass 18% of GDP and pave the way for growth. Government officials have announced wholesale fuel prices will double next month. Freight transportation will jump between 40% and 60% in March. You're watching DD India News and time now for some sports news. Indian women's team will face Poland in the inaugural edition of the FIH Hockey 5S Women's World Cup in Muscat, capital of Oman. The Indian team is being led by experienced goalkeeper Rajni Etemapu, while defender Mahima Chaudhary is vice-captain. The Indian women's team is included in Pool C alongside the United States of America, Poland and Namibia. The Netherlands, Malaysia, Fiji and host Oman are in Pool A, while Australia, South Africa, Ukraine and Zambia form Pool B. Group D consists of New Zealand, Uruguay, Thailand and Paraguay. World Cup will take place from 24th to the 27th of January 2024. And the Indian men's hockey team will take on France in the four-nation tournament in the Cape Town city of South Africa on Wednesday. The week-long tournament features France, the Netherlands, India and host South Africa. In the earlier match, India thrashed France 4-0 as Harmanpreet Singh scored a brace. Lalit Upadhyay and vice-captain Hardik Singh also scored one goal each. India will play the host South Africa on 26th of January and finish the tour with a match against the Netherlands on the 28th of January. Well, Indian tennis veteran Rohan Bopanna and his Australian partner Matthew Ebden stormed into the semi-finals of the men's doubles at the Australian Open. The duo breezed past the sixth-seeded Argentine duo of Maxipo Gonzalez and Andres Molteni in the quarterfinals to secure 6-4, 7-6 win. Bopanna and Ebden, seeded second in the draw, displayed remarkable resilience to seal the victory in 2 sets. And Aryna Sabalenka overpowered Barbora Krejcikova 6-2, 6-3 in a quarter-final to keep her Australian Open title defence firmly on course. She has set up a showdown with US Open champion Coco Gauff in the semi-finals. The meeting between Sabalenka and Gauff could go a long way to deciding who takes home the trophy. Also, Diana Yastremska beat Czech Linda Noskova 6-3, 6-4 to book a semi-final spot at the Australian Open, becoming the first qualifier to reach the last 4 since 1978. The Ukrainian's powerful forehand eventually overcame the 19-year-old Czech, who was the youngest player left in the women's draw. China's Chen Qinwen meets Russia's Anna Kalinskaya in the first match of the evening session, with the first ever trip to a major semi-final, the reward on offer for both players. And in Australian Open, Italy's Jannik Sinner set up a mouth-watering semi-final against Novak Djokovic as he fought off Andrei Rublev in a late-night duel. The fourth seed showed patience and resilience to claim a 6-4, 7-6, 6-3 win against the Russian, who now owns the ugly record of 10 defeats out of 10 in Grand Slam quarter-finals. Fifth seed Rublev threw the kitchen sink at his opponent, but was left with the same old sinking feeling as he consistently failed to take his chances, especially when leading the second set tie break 5-1. Men's third seed Daniil Medvedev is aiming to reach his third Australian Open semi-final in 4 years as he takes on big serving Paul Hubert Hurkacz, who is making his first appearance in the last 8 in Melbourne. Hurkacz has beaten Medvedev in the last 2 meetings. Second seed Carlos Alcaraz faces arguably the toughest test of his Australian Open campaign when he faces Germany's Alexander Zverev in the quarter-finals. The match promises to be a fascinating clash of styles. Alcaraz has faced Zverev 7 times before, with the German baseliner prevailing on 4 occasions. And moving on, a flagship program of the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, the Fit India Mission, is all set to launch the Fit India Champions podcast series. It is being launched in partnership with GeoQui, a major stakeholder in the fitness sector that proactively manages health through its digital and multimedia technology. The series will showcase the remarkable accomplishments and inspiring stories of India's sporting heroes. The episode starts from January 27th. The sensational armless archer Sheetal Devi, who took the 2023 Asian Para Games in Hangzhou by storm with a gold-winning feat on debut, will feature in the opening episode. World and Olympic javelin champion Neeraj Chopra, who will be number 2 in this enviable list of speakers, has revealed unknown sides from his professional career and the twists and turns in his life as a youngster. And India's Satvik Sairaj Rankareddy and Chirag Shetty reclaimed the top spot in the Badminton World Federation men's doubles ranking. The Asian Games champions reached the world #1 ranking for a second time after successive runner-up finishes in the Malaysia Open Super 1000 and India Open Super 750 badminton tournaments. The Indian duo had achieved its numero uno status for the first time after claiming the historic gold medal at the 2022 Asian Games in Hangzhou last year. Among other Indians, H.S. Pranoy moved a place to reach the world #8, while Lakshya Sen, Kidambi Srikanth and Priyanshi Rajawat stayed at 19th, 25th and 30th spots, respectively. And India's western state of Maharashtra leads the medal tally at the 6th Khelo India Youth Games, closely followed by Tamil Nadu, while Haryana and Delhi are at the 3rd place. Maharashtra has bagged 14 gold, 15 silver and 16 bronze. The Games has witnessed participation of over 5,600 young athletes in 26 sports that includes archery, athletics and badminton. It will culminate on the 31st of January 2024. India's southern state of Tamil Nadu is hosting the Games. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.